Hello there, welcome to another Code Flow tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be talking about HTML forms. Let's go. Okay, so sometimes when you're actually browsing through a web page or a website, sometimes you might want to fill in some sets of information. And of course, we all know that the fact that if we want to create a database in web design, we need to use a bit of PHP and SQL. But to create the visual look of the form in which you're about to fill is what we use HTML and CSS for. But most of the things are actually created through HTML. We just have to style it and make it much more stylish with CSS. And obviously, we are about to come to the end of this HTML series. And so HTML form is a very important aspect of this HTML series. And so we have to go through some of the few things we have to do when we're actually making an HTML form. So right now, let's open our main.html. Let's open it with code. HTML forms are a very integral part of a site. I mean, technically, every website wants to have their user information. So a best way to collect it is through HTML forms. And HTML forms serve as a container for different kind of input elements, such as text fields, checkboxes, submit buttons, like a lot of radio buttons, and especially the text fields. And although most of those checkboxes and radio buttons, you're going to get most of them when we get to the HTML forms input attributes and also input elements. So basically, let me say it's kind of very simple to get. And so for that reason, we're dividing this into a four-part series in which you're going to be able to know more extended details about HTML forms. There are more things you can know about HTML forms, and if you want to know more about it, you can go to W3 Schools. They have good intensive tutorials on this aspect because there are some parts of HTML forms that we don't, because obviously you don't need it. So actually right now, let's just scroll down. Let's scroll down a bit. And we're going to type in our comments, the normal comments. We're going to write making an HTML form. So we're actually learning how to make an HTML form, and it's very much more important we know the kinds of elements we should be expecting in an HTML form. So we're going to take these elements one by one. The first element in my list is called the input element. And basically the input element, what it does is that it helps you to import text, radio buttons, checkboxes, submit buttons, dates, even normal button. I mean, technically that's just what the input does, okay? The input element, that is what it does in an HTML form. So right now, let's try and write a bit of an HTML form relating to about the input type. So you're trying to use the input, you use the word input, the tag input, and you close it. But actually, this won't actually be the only case. But before we actually use the input tag, remember that we're actually trying to make an HTML form. So I'm just trying to show you what you're going to use. So to start creating the HTML form, use the tag form. And we have the form set ready. So in the middle, you're going to write the input tag. You can write input and you can close it. It's not going to give you a closing tag. So in the middle of the input and as part of the attribute, we can type in the type. We want the type. And you can see right here we have the button, checkboxes, colors, and everything. So in the next tutorial, we're going to check out how those things work. I think most of those things, we're going to check out how they work and how they just roll. So we have a bit of a text. We want to add text to those things. So I'm going to select text right here. And in the text though, it doesn't have to contain a lot of things. I can actually give it a name. The name of my text, I want to name it first name. Okay, I want to name it first name, and of course we need a label because the label helps us to kind of identify the text, So I want to write first name as the label, and I can save this, and by the time I go back to my Chrome, I want to preview this in Google Chrome. This might take a while. Okay, So yeah, we've got the preview of the HTML we'll be using all this while. So right now let's scroll down, and right here we can see, we can see our form right here. First name, this is the label, and here we can type in our text. Okay, this is not my first name, but this will do. So this is just a simple thing that we have actually done just in a few minutes. I know that this HTML form is very easy. All you just have to know is just to memorize a bit of the tags, and you get yourself going in it. So the next one, this is the input type for text. But sometimes you might actually want to just separate the label from the name. So let's just create a BR tag, and this will help us to fix in a bit of a line break. Save this, and if we go to our Chrome and we preview this, you can see that right now we have a bit of a line break, which kind of makes a lot of sense. Now we can actually create another input type. But before we create the input type, let's create a label for it, and let's give it a BR tag so it doesn't seem that it is on the same line. In the label, we can write second name, okay, second name, and in the input type, in the input type, you can close this. We're going to type in the type that we want, and we also want a text. We need a text. And so we can just write I think we want the second name, but anyway we actually need to import it right here as name. You will know more about the name and the stuff when you are actually labeling some things, because there are some things that you need to label before you can actually style them in CSS later on. Second name, and we can save this, and by the time we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, we would see that by the time we scroll down, we can see second name right here. Well, once you notice the fact that this is on a different line and the thing seems to be meeting with each other, okay? But probably let's just praise this. Let's just add a BR tag to separate this and make it look a bit seeable. So let's reload this, and you can see that right now we have a bit of some orderliness right in the arrangements. So we managed to create a bit of like input fields for the HTML elements. Now basically you've actually known a bit of what the label can actually do. The label tag, it's like it defines a label from many form elements. Okay, you're trying to label something. That means that this is what this thing means. Imagine if I go to a site and I don't see the first name or second name, I would not actually know what to type right in the middle of those boxes. So label tag is very much more important for that particular aspect. So another tag that we might actually want to explore are radio buttons, and I told you that most of the stuff are gonna be input type. So we can state another input, and right now we can state our type for the input. So come here, state the type, and we can write radio. We are trying to create a radio button. So we have a radio button right here, and yeah, we can actually create a label, because we need to label the radio button is. Switch to code flow. I'm going to name it to switch to code flow, and I'm going to save this. But first you need to know the fact that let's just give this a BR tag so it doesn't seem to look wonky. Let's save this, and by the time we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, you can see that we have a simple radio button here, and once we click it, you're gonna see that it clicks, and it's called switch to code flow. So that's how to create a very simple radio button. We can also create checkboxes, and there are also many other things that are in HTML forms that we'll explore in the next few tutorials. Most of them deals more about the input type. So this is just the basics in creating a very simple and minimal HTML form. So in the next tutorial, we're going to talk more about the input attributes, like the input element and the attributes that can be entered within the input element. All right. So but first, before we actually go, let's try to create something. So I've actually been thinking that maybe we should actually add something to the input type. We can actually add what we call a placeholder. But actually, this is a radio button. It's not going to be much of use here. But let's go to the input element, the input type for the text, and we can add in a placeholder. Okay, so how the placeholder attributes work is the fact that sometimes you might want to actually, you might not actually know what to actually put in that box, but through a particular, maybe a bit of some words that are written inside the box, you can actually enter the stuff, like you can know what to actually put within that particular box. So you can actually see that the placeholder attribute is very useful. So right now I want to write something here, so that the user can actually know that this is what they actually meant to type. So once I save this and I go back to our Chrome and preview this, we can see that you can see your name written right here. So I can actually know what to write within this. My name is Victor, so that works for it. So Victor, so that's it. So that's actually just a simple tool for this input type. So once you have actually got about the input type, we want to talk about the input attributes as a whole. We don't only have just type name and placeholder. There are some other values that we have that are going to make your HTML forms to be very okay. So that's all for now. I'll see you in the next tutorial.